If there's something this movie has taught me, it's buy a car or get a ride from a friend or yeah, take the bus. If you have to take an Uber, but don't use cabs. Just don't. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. There's a link to that in the description below. It'll give you a pretty good idea of what the horror movie syllabus is all about, but in short, we take a look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But that's not what we're doing today, because today we're doing our Is It Syllabus Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation from you guys and I watch it, something I've never seen before, and then to just evaluate it, decide whether or not I think it's worthy of making it on the horror movie syllabus. If you haven't seen the thumbnail for some odd reason, the movie that we're talking about today is a movie called Chained, a 2012 movie that was recommended by Nick Williamson, friend of the channel, and Nick recommended this movie when we did one of our other Is It Syllabus Worthy videos for the movie The Tunnel, which so it didn't really give me a lot of clues as to what this movie would be about because it wasn't on a specific subgenre. And in fact, I kind of thought it might be a found footage movie because The Tunnel is a found footage movie, but it's not. But this movie did wind up surprising me, not just because I didn't know a lot about it going in, but because it really wound up being much more ambitious than it sounded like it would be from its generic title, and it's coming out in the 2010s. So I'm excited to get into this a little bit and tell you a little bit more. So we're going to do what we normally do with these. We're going to review it a little bit. I'm going to tell you what I liked about the movie, what I didn't like about the movie, and then we're going to finish up by talking about whether or not it's syllabus worthy, whether or not it's good enough to make the cut. So why don't we just jump into that review right now? As I mentioned, the movie that we're talking about today is the movie Chained. And Chained came out in 2012 and is directed by Jennifer Lynch, daughter of the amazing David Lynch. And this movie has some real talent behind it for what seems to be kind of a throwaway direct to video horror movie. And it really is surprising to me the talent and the ambition that is behind this movie. But we'll get into all that in just a minute. But first, if you haven't seen it before, the movie stars Vincent D'Onofrio as this hulking cab driving serial killer who inadvertently winds up also taking in the child of one of his victims. And rather than killing the child, he decides to raise him from age 9 up into a young adult, basically kind of being like a weird father figure to him with the intent of making him a protege, if you will, making him into a fledgling serial killer like himself. But this kid is not really picking up what Vincent D'Onofrio is putting down. And that leads to a lot of interesting family drama, if you will, in this otherwise torturific slasher movie. But hijinks abound, and I won't spoil them for you in case you haven't seen the movie. But I'd say see this movie. This movie is a trip. This is a movie that did not do what I expected it to do. With a title like Chained, which is a pretty generic sounding movie, a movie title, and with its year that it came out, with the cover art for it, with the tagline premise, I was expecting torture porn, and the research I did tells me that that's originally what it was. The original screenwriter had a torture porn script that it was kind of the middle to tail end of the torture porn craze at that point, but it's basically supposed to be like a serial killer who's torturing people and having this kid help him, and okay, that's cool. I'm not necessarily out on that, but it didn't sound all that amazing. But apparently Jennifer Lynch got a hold of this and decided to make it into something different. She rewrote the script and really wanted to focus on a character study. And you can debate whether or not she was successful in that, but it's an interesting approach. And the thing I like the most about this movie is that it was directed by Jennifer Lynch and rewritten by Jennifer Lynch, and that it stars Vincent D'Onofrio and Eamon Farron, because this talent is what made this movie cut above your standard horror schlock, which is what this should have been. But Jennifer Lynch deciding to try to be a little bit more interesting, do something a little bit more interesting than your standard torture porn, is a big part of what made this movie interesting. Focusing instead on the relationship between the serial killer and the boy who grows up into, like I said, a young adult over the course of the movie, played by Eamon Farron of Twin Peaks fame. So there's a connection between daughter and father right there. And you know me, I love me a Twin Peaks actor, so I'm always a little biased towards them. But Eamon Farron is really good in this movie. Um, he brings a certain pathos to this character who's very conflicted, and you sympathize with him throughout the entire movie, which is important. And then you've got D'Onofrio doing his D'Onofrio thing. He's just a hulking, imposing figure, which fits for the movie very, very well. It's important that he's intimidating physically, but he's also using his physicality in a wonderful way. He's one of the most physical actors that we have in this generation right now, right up there with like Joaquin Phoenix, where he's acting with his body as much as he's acting, like, you know, with his words and with his face. His body is telling a story, and it's really a fantastic performance. He's always good, but D'Onofrio is a master at doing that like scary but also wounded thing really well. You know, he did the Kingpin, Full Metal Jacket. Like, you've seen him do this before. He's doing it here. He's the perfect choice for this, and he's not phoning it in. He really is trying to give you a really unique and challenging, strong performance, even though this is like a straight to video kind of throwaway horror movie. Really admire his performance in this. It's a big part of what I like about the movie is him in this. And Lynch is doing a really good job of directing. Well, let me be clear. Jennifer Lynch is not her dad, not even close. Not even close to the talent that her dad has. But I don't think she's ever gotten a fair shake either. I feel like she's gotten a raw deal in every one of her movies. I like her movies. You know, Boxing Helena didn't really get to do the vision I think that she originally intended. You know, and her other movies, Surveillance is a good movie, but it feels like in this movie too, it feels like she's always being hindered a little bit by her studio constraints. Like, she's not really getting free reign to do what it is she wants to do. So I feel like I've never really actually seen a bona fide Jennifer Lynch movie, and this movie's no exception to that. I gather from what I did in the research, there's not a director's cut of this. She wants to do a director's cut to show you a little bit more of what she had intended to do. She had to cut some things out to get an R rating. She had to kind of cater to some of the studio's wishes in terms of content. She couldn't even name the movie the way she wanted. She wanted to call it Rabbit, named after Eamon Farron's character. But instead, they chose the much more generic, but also, I guess, scarier Chained. Rabbit's a better title, but also I don't see anybody going to see it when it's called Rabbit. So I kind of understand the studio on that one. But the point is, Jennifer Lynch has not really gotten a fair shake of making her film, and this has not changed that. But I do think she's a solid director. She knows how to set a scene. She knows how to move a camera, and she knows how to let her actors do their thing. And this movie, she really focused on that, and it was a smart move. Letting the actors just act, letting them carry the movie. It's the strength of the movie, is the performances of D'Onofrio and Farron and the interaction between the two of them. It works really, really well. It's great. It's disturbing. It's the heart of this movie, and it's powerful. I love it. The second thing I really like about this movie is the ambition. And I kind of brushed up on this earlier. Jennifer Lynch took what should have been a throwaway torture porn movie and decided she was going to do a character study out of it. And I think that it's mostly successful. People get uncomfortable when you take like a serial killer and kind of humanize them in any way, shape, or form, and don't just make them the monster. And she kind of does that with D'Onofrio. I don't think she fully humanizes him, and she definitely doesn't make make him sympathetic. You don't sympathize with him. You don't root for him. It's not like that. But she does provide some layers, some explanation, if you will, and she makes what he's doing to the kid not questionable. It's wrong. You know, you're never going to not think it's wrong, but you also kind of understand it, where he's trying to go with that and the connection he's trying to make and everything. It's a little bit tragic in that sort of way. Whether or not she's successful in that is a matter of debate, and even I, who really enjoyed that, will say it's not 100% successful. We'll get into why that is in a minute there. But I do think that she cast it well enough to really take on this concept, which feels like a fresh concept. You know, the idea of, you know, a serial killer or somebody like that taking on a protege, maybe not the most sympathetic, but the fact that the protege doesn't just kind of fall in step and really take to it was to me fresh and felt more original and felt more interesting. The idea that he didn't really want to do it and that he wasn't really shy about vocalizing that, and watching D'Onofrio's character try to break him down, that was interesting stuff, and that's what the movie focused on. Like all of the the violence and stuff is kind of happening off, not all of it. There's some on-screen violence, but a lot of the really heavy, dark, and gruesome stuff happens off screen. It's alluded to, and it's very effective. It was a wise move by Lynch to not show a lot of that stuff and leave it to your imagination, making it feel more grim and gruesome than it probably could have ever shown on screen, and giving it a little bit of a bit of a mystery to it, an edge to it. Really effective, and also just so it didn't distract from the character study. These two characters interacting, and now the detriment to it, and this is where some of the drawbacks that come in, is that you know it doesn't give the female victims a whole lot to work with, because the focus of the movie is not them. The focus is these two characters, the killer and the protege. The victims are victims. They're disposable. They are treated the way that they are treated by the serial killer. They are viewed the way the serial killer views them, which is disposable, somewhat meaningless, just kind of names on a card, on an identification card, and a memory on a video. It's really, you know, it feels misogynist because you're in the mind of a misogynist. And I think that they did that really, really well, but I can see why it turns people off. These women in the movie are just there to be victimized for the most part, with one little exception. But they're fodder. They don't mean anything because you're seeing this from the perspective of these two characters, and they're not real characters, these women. And so it has a misogynist feel intentionally, I think, that I thought was very effective, but I can see why some people would be very much put off by it. And the other complaint besides that misogyny that you hear a lot about this movie has to do with the ending. And this is one that I would have a harder time defending. The ending has a bit of a twist to it, and I won't spoil it, obviously, but it's something that doesn't feel particularly set up or earned. And that's one thing is, a twist ending that kind of feels a little bit out of nowhere can feel a little forced and contrived. But it also feels like maybe it undercuts a little bit of what was being focused on in the movie. Some of the family dynamics that were being explored, and this relationship between these two men, and what it meant, and where it was coming from and why it was happening, feels a little undercut by this twist ending. It feels like the twist ending is put in there to have a twist ending, to have a surprise at the end. That it is surprising. I sure didn't guess it. But I don't really know what it's trying to say. It feels incongruous with the movie I just watched. It doesn't feel like it's tied to it in any way. And this is where I feel like if Jennifer Lynch got her chance to have the director's cut, maybe it's there. Maybe it's scenes that got cut out for time or for other reasons that kind of set this up a little bit more and kind of flesh out a theme that was trying to be told. And again, I can't go into what I'm thinking here without spoiling the movie, and I'm not going to do that. But I can see how, with a couple extra scenes, you could have maybe tied this together to the surprise ending a little bit better in a way that would maybe say something important or say something interesting, instead of just feeling like a schlocky twist ending. But it doesn't actually do that in the cut we have, and we probably won't get a director's cut because it's not like this movie was a big hit or anything. So this is what we're left with, and it feels like it leaves something on the table. It's missing something. The ending didn't click. It didn't hit home, and it didn't drive home what I had just watched, which up until that point was really compelling to me. Really great actors doing really great work on a challenging, interesting concept by a director that knows what she wants to do. And I thought that she did it really well. I really wish she'd been able to stick the landing, and I feel like maybe there's a cut somewhere that she did, and I feel like we're not going to get a chance to see it because that's what the studio dictated, and it's a little bit unfortunate. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on a movie that I really enjoyed, even though it's not a slam dunk of a movie. But is it syllabus worthy? Well, let's find out. So it's time to ask the question, is it syllabus worthy? And the answer is it might squeak in as an extra credit movie on a video. Because I liked it quite a bit. I liked it way more than I thought it was. I saw the title, I saw the year it came out, I saw the tagline. I was like, all right, I can deal with like a torture porn slasher movie. That's kind of my jam. Well, I won't have a bad time at least. But this movie wound up doing a lot more than I expected it to do, and it tried to do a lot more than I expected to do, and it maybe didn't accomplish everything, but it sure gave it the old college try, and I was really, really impressed with it. The fact that it was Jennifer Lynch made me interested in it. D'Onofrio popping up really made me interested. Eamon Farron again, Twin Peaks, I love that. So I was really down for this movie once I realized what I was in for, and I was still surprised even watching it. Enough goodwill in this movie, even though again not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, enough goodwill in it for me to want to try to talk about it in a video, which I'm obviously doing right now. But had I seen it before Nick recommended it to us, I think I still would have maybe tried to find a way to squeeze it in, probably as an extra credit, because I'm probably not a solid enough movie to bump anything that's been picked already. Definitely not in the slasher subgenre. I don't think it's going to fit there. And again, it's not really truly torture porn. It was, intended to be, but it didn't really go that route. So I probably wouldn't even try to put it there. Where I probably want to talk about it is in the dysfunctional family subgenre because of that relationship between D'Onofrio and the boy. It really is a dysfunctional family. It really is setting up this father son or father stepson or father ward relationship, and it's really unsettling and disturbing, and it really head on takes on the idea of like abusive families and stuff like that. Really heavy stuff, and does it in a really interesting way. At least I felt like it did. So that's probably where I'd want to stick. And again, I'm probably not good enough to bump the movies we had in Dysfunctional Family. There's some good movies in that video, but I'd probably squeeze it in as an extra credit movie there because I would have really wanted to talk about this movie. And I'm glad that Nick gave me a chance to talk about it here. Thanks, Nick, for picking it because I really enjoyed it. I think it's something that people should hear about. People should know about this movie. And it's not going to be for everybody, obviously, but if it sounds like it's up your alley, you should definitely check it out because it was a really interesting and ambitious movie. Really kind of a fresh take on a well-trod subject matter. And I really wish there was a director's cut. I really wish I could see that because maybe a director's cut version would firmly put it on the syllabus. Maybe that would win me over if it had those little nitpicks that I had ironed out by a director's cut that kind of tied everything together a little bit more, set up that ending a little bit better. Maybe it would be good enough. I really wish we got that. And alas, we probably never will. But I'm glad I got to see the movie that we did. This was definitely not a waste of my time. I really got into this movie. I really enjoyed it. Again, didn't quite stick the landing. So beware of that when you check it out for yourself. If you check it out, again, it's not going to be for everybody. While most of that violence is happening off screen, it's pretty well implied what's going on in those movies, in the movie in those kills. So it's sexual assault, sexual torture, murder. It's some rough stuff, mostly off screen, but some glimpses of it and some talk about it. So not going to be for everybody, but it was for me. It was for me for sure. I really enjoyed this movie. I really thought that the acting was top notch, the directing was solid, the story idea, the concept of it was really, really interesting to me. So yeah, high recommend from me if it's your kind of movie, if you can stomach it. Again, thanks Nick for recommending it. And you've got a bunch of other recommendations that you made. So we're gonna be checking out some more of your movies in the future because your first one that I've checked out was a winner for me. So thanks very, very much. Now it's that time where we're gonna check out the Horror Trivia Pursuit card. And I'm going to try to answer the question live on camera, and you guys can join along. And we're going to look at the killer category because, this was a movie about a serial killer. So here's our question. What is the surname of the Texas Ranger called in to investigate the attacks in 1976's The Town That Dreaded Sundown? Man, I don't know. I have no idea. It's a well-worn fact at this point that I don't do well with names of characters. Like we've had so many of these questions that have talked about names of characters, and I'm not particularly good at them. There's ones that you can remember. Norman Bates, stuff like that. There's iconic ones, sure, but like names of like random characters, or even main characters in movies. I'll remember the movie, but I won't remember the character's name a lot of the time. And this is definitely one of those times. I mean, I have a feeling that when I turn this card over and I look at the answer, it's going to be one of those situations where I'm like, oh yeah, of course. And it's just going to click for me. It's going to be very memorable and I'm just not remembering it at all. But I haven't seen The Town That Dreaded Sundown in a minute. It's been a while. It's a good movie. I like that movie. We may be talking about that movie in the future. But I don't remember this name at all. And I'm kind of, prattling on a little bit to give you guys some thought time, time to think about it, because maybe you're struggling, maybe it's right there at the tip of your tongue. If you watch last week's video, it was like I kind of knew the answer, and I was like really trying to come up with it, and I came close. This kind of time, I have no clue. I'm gonna guess an answer because why wouldn't I take a guess? I might get lucky, but I'm gonna be wrong. I'm gonna be wrong. I'm not gonna get it right for sure. But I think I've prattled on long enough. You should have had enough time to come up with an answer now. Lock your answer in. No going back because we're about to get an answer. But first, I'll make my guess. And I'm gonna guess Walker. Walker, Texas Ranger, which is the stupidest answer, but it's kind of, it's a little bit funny, right? It's a little bit funny. Walker, Texas Ranger. That's my answer. But the real answer, according to this card, is Morales. Morales, Texas Ranger, which I would probably watch that show, Morales, Texas Ranger. I think that'd be kind of cool. But no, it's not like one of those situations where I'm like, oh, of course, Morales. And when I revisit that movie, I'm going to be hearing the name and be like, damn it, I should have known that. But I didn't. I didn't know that one. I had no clue. I don't even feel bad about it. I don't even feel bad about it. It's like a name I didn't remember. But did you know it? Did you know it, or did you guess Walker, Texas Ranger too? Because I have a feeling at least one of you out there guessed Walker, Texas Ranger. Let me know in the comments below. Stand with me in our stupidity about trying to be funny in a really ham-fisted way. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you check out Chained if you haven't checked it out. Really good recommendation from Nick. Thank you guys for your recommendations. Keep them coming because I'm making a list and I'm going through them, knocking them out, and I've so far been really enjoying what you guys have picked. And this week was no exception to that rule. So thanks very much. Looking forward to talking to you guys in the comments about this movie and about other movies that you're suggesting. And until next week when we do something completely different, class dismissed.